Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be doing a data lemur video on a real SQL interview question that was asked by Twitter. So let's get into it. I'm going to read the problem. It says, assume you're given a table Twitter tweet data, write a query to obtain a histogram of tweets posted per user in 2022. Output the tweet count per user as the bucket and the number of Twitter users who fall into that bucket. In other words, group the users by the number of tweets they posted in 2022 and count the number of users in each group. Okay, cool. And so it also gives us a table. It has 4 columns in it, and it also gives us an example input. So we can see here that we only want to look at the tweets posted in 2022. So this row right here, we wouldn't look at. So we would not look at this row, and then we would only look at these rows because they have a year of 2022. And if we go to the output, then we can see that we want to have an output of 2 columns. The first one is called tweet bucket, and the second one is called user nums. The tweet bucket is the grouping, and it represents the number of tweets posted. The second column is users num, and that represents the number of users who fall under this group or this bucket. So you can see here that in this case, because we're only looking at these records, there's one user who had 2 tweets, and you can see that user is this guy over here because his user ID exists twice. And then the other ones, there's 2 users who only have 1 tweet each. And that's because it's these users and they only have 1 row each. So yeah, let's get right into coding. I'm going to this question involves it's kind of tricky for an easy question because you need to create 2 separate queries. And so you need to know what subqueries are. And I'm going to be explaining what that means as I code this out. So the first query or the inner query is going to be, and they tell you right here, you want to group the users by the number of tweets they posted in 2022. That's the first query we have to do. The second query, or the outer query, is going to be count the numbers of users in each group. Okay, so we're going to say select, and then we want to get the user ID, and we want to get the number of tweets. And we want to count these tweet IDs. So I'm going to say count the tweet ID from, and then we want to specify the table name. So if I run that, this isn't the answer, but if I run that, I just want to show you. Oh wait, okay, we get an error because I use the aggregate function here, so I have to use a group by clause. And so what a group by clause does is that it basically performs this aggregate function, this count function, on every single unique user ID. Because it groups, this group by clause creates separate groups based on this user ID column, if that makes sense. So I'm going to run that, and then you can see here that there's 3, the user of 111 occurs 3 times, the user of 148 occurs 1 time, the user of 254 occurs 1 time. And it also says that we only want to get the number of the tweets posted in 2022. So we have to make sure to have a where clause, and a where is kind of like, if you have previous coding experience, it's kind of like an if statement. And so you got to make sure to put the where statement before the group by clause. So it's going to be where, and then it's going to be where extract. This is how you extract the year from a record. So extract year from and then we put in the column name, which is tweet date. And then I'm going to say if that year is equal to 2022, then we're going to group by the user ID. Let me run that. And there we go. So we can see that, I guess one of the tweets for this guy over here, he had a tweet in 2021 or a different year than 2022. So it went down a little bit. But so yeah, this is going to be our first query. And so this query would answer this question over here. Group the users by the number of tweets they posted in 2022. Now we have to count the number of users in each group. And so to do that, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to do a select. You have to do another select statement on top of the select statement that you just created. So you want to get the select, and then I'm gonna call this in the inner query that I wrote before. I'm gonna say count tweet ID is going to be called. They said that they want it to be called the tweet bucket, so I'll call it that. And then so now I'm gonna say select the tweet bucket, and then we also want to get the count of the user ID, because it says over here in the second part, we want to count the number of users in each group. And in this case, each group represents the counts of the tweets, because we're using the number of tweets as the groupings. So I'm gonna say select tweet bucket, which is basically this, and then count the number of users in that group. I'm gonna say from, and then the way we do this, we gotta put this inner query in parentheses, and then we have to give this inner query an alias name. So I'm gonna say you can call it whatever you want. I'll just call it user frequency. And then we also gotta make sure to group by the tweet bucket, because we want to make sure that the number of users is being returned or is being created based on the number of tweets that are posted, because this number represents this tweet bucket is the group. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna run that now, and so now you can see that there's one tweet, or let me rephrase that. There's two people who have one tweet in 2022, and then there's one person that had two tweets in 2022. So if I submit that, and we got it right. So in this question, you need to know subqueries, and you could do a little bit more research on that later. I'll put a link in the description below to learn more subqueries. And yeah, that's all I got for this video. Hope you found it helpful. Have a good day.